This is Flowers on the Stage.
Something that always strikes me, and it really, really happened at like the beginning of this year, is just their constant evolution as musicians. Like I'm right up on it. I see them, 100, 200 times, whatever it is, days a year. And I remember at the beginning of this year, we were like playing a couple of gigs, and I was just like, man, these guys are like on fire, like really just playing with something new. Like, there's a term, they've been in the shed. I was like, these guys have been in the shed. And I was just like, I became so inspired by the guys that I play in a band with that I've been playing with for 15 years just by hearing their like uh just hearing their intention and just like finding something new. It's like it's so rare to have those moments in life with something you've been doing forever, whether it's musical or otherwise, to like find something new and inspiration. And so I guess the answer to that question is like one of the defining characteristics about the guys in my band is I'm always inspired by them in one way or another, which I think is really a special thing. It's I think it's easy to be in relationships with people, whether it's again musical or otherwise, where you just kind of like there's nothing new and exciting, and I don't feel that way specifically musically with them, and I guess otherwise too. But like since we're talking about the music, it's just really that's something I reflected on at the beginning of this year before we knew we were taking a hiatus or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, and I guess addressing them individually, they're all like really hard workers in their own ways. Like, Eli is just, always, for better and for worse, always so like, what's next? We got to keep this thing moving. We got to like, what's the next move? Like he's the doer. If without Eli, Dopapod would not exist. He's the starter of the band. He's the originator, and he is like the fire behind it. And I am always really inspired just by anybody in that position that can take something as like, there's we don't have normal jobs. There aren't rules to this. You become a plumber, you become whatever else. There's like, there's kind of a way you do it. You go to school and then you get this job and you get an internship and you get this, and this is the way you fix these things. And like nobody taught us how to do, like, we went to school for music, but we figured out all this on our own. And just like seeing everybody in the band's ability to like learn and grow and just like make it up as we're going is just always what a cool ability for people to have that I don't see in a lot of other aspects of life. And I just feel so lucky to be around like creative people, intensely creative people, and just such hardworking, passionate people. Neil's like just such a good vibe. He's just always optimistic and always about like doing what's best for like the vibe of the situation. He's a planner, he's a hard worker, but like when he's making decisions, it's always like, how is this going to be the most fun, and how are we going to have the best time doing it? And he's just like forever, just like one of the most compassionate and understanding people I've ever met. He's one of those people, like if Neil doesn't like someone, that's a real red flag. And I can't really think of anyone, but every now and then if Neil's like, man, that guy's a dick, you're like, that guy's definitely a dick then. Like, that's all you had to say. Um, and Rob is my special guy. He's we I think there's people like this. I can be this way, and I can think of other people that like they're and he'll even say the same thing, but they're not always the most open when you first meet them. He can be kind of like, not that he's ever rude to anyone. He's just kind of like, hey, thanks, and he can be kind of closed off. But when you like get inside of his circle, like he'll do anything for you. He's really just like one of those puppy dog people. Like once you're his friend and you're in with him, he's like you're in for life. And you can always count on him for like talking about stuff, whether it's just bullshitting or something real. Um, Yeah, man, they're just all like just my best friends, I just love them all so much for different reasons.
Mm. What would you say you've learned are the most important things when it comes to being a great bandmate?
There's this um there's this book I've been reading. It's called How to Be an Adult in Relationships, which is just the absolute worst title for a book. It's like if you saw it, you're like, I'm not going to read that. But it's a more it ties in with the idea of like, self-help is sort of transformed into like self-mastery and self-healing. And there's like different terms for the same idea, but it's an idea of just sort of like diving in and sort of getting into your subconscious. And there's a lot of ways that they talk about relationships in that are applicable to whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or anything else. And there's a couple, I'm not going to do it justice. There's the 5 A's, but a few of them are like attention, allowing, acceptance, acknowledging, and I forget the last one. But just the idea of that is just like being present with the relationships, the people you have relationships with in your life, and just like showing up, allowing them to be themselves, allowing you to be yourself, and communication, just really being able to like let your ego down and have a real conversation. It's so easy to get wrapped up in shit on the road because you're tired and you're gigging and you're just like, you were with people consistently. You don't get more than like an hour, maybe 2 hours to yourself a day. That's the thing that kind of gets, unless you do it, you don't really understand. People are like, oh, it's you don't have a real job. Like you're out there gigging. It's like, man, come out with me for a week and tell me that this is like all fun and partying all the time. It's just like one of the hardest parts about it is just being around people all the time. So like tensions get high and you can just like as you get older, you feel it coming on. And now like, I'm not drinking or partying anymore. And that adds its own level of chemical imbalance. But now I can like you just feel yourself like over a 2, 3 week tour, you're just like degrading and just like little things are just irritating you more and more. But if you kind of remember that and accept it, I think it's easy to give everyone their space and sort of like, you know, just allow them to be people. Everybody makes mistakes and just show them the respect with their personal time, their space, and their decisions, I guess is the easy answer.
Mm. And bringing it back to something you said at the first part of your answer there, like allowing,
Yeah.
one of the A's in that book. I think it's so interesting that allowing is kind of like an active thing. Cause like when you think about that, it almost thinks like not even a word, allowing. Like, cause that's not, you don't really do anything. I feel like most people don't even necessarily know what that looks like or means. Maybe not most people, but some people.
Yeah. The idea of allowing is just like understanding that people are different and you're going to have like, there's going to be things and feelings and opinions that the other person's going to have that just you don't agree with, and just like allowing them to be themselves, and allowing them to make their own decisions, and there's a balance there because that can become abusive sometimes, like if they're making decisions and actions that are actively affecting you in a negative way, that's a different story. But if you're just like constantly trying to manipulate or whatever term you want to use someone else, that's not healthy. That doesn't work.
Mm.
Live for Live Music presents the Ogopogo Monsters Ball featuring Dopapod and Circles Around the Sun, October 25th and 26th at Cervantes Masterpiece Ballroom in Denver, Colorado. Grab your tickets now at dopapod.com/tour.
What would you say are some of the most notable or maybe unexpected benefits you've experienced from eliminating drinking and cutting out hard drugs?
um you know the weirdest thing that happened is when I stopped, there's like this moment where you realize you're like, holy shit, like I brought a 25-year-old person with me into my mid 30s. And when I kind of stopped like acting like a 25-year-old, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, like I'm in my mid 30s. Like, who am I? What is important to me? Like, how do I deal with these emotions and stuff too? And it's just like so brand new. And I just like, you can't escape from, these things as they come up, whether it's like old issues or current issues or just like figuring yourself out is just like the wildest thing in the world. And I was terrified of like playing music because it was such a crutch, you're like, I'm gonna have a drink before show, I'm gonna have a drink afterwards. And like I was so scared of just have being naked up there. And it is so much better. Like the version of myself that I bring on stage now is like clear-headed, calm, I'm prepared. I feel like it's my job. I show up with intention and purpose, and like I'm proud to be up there, like before, if you made a mistake, which would happen more often because you're fucked up, just, I didn't really, I mean, I'm happy to dive into it, but I never did any like hard drugs before I played. I tried doing blow a couple times before I played, and like it was the worst. Just like I mean, number one, whatever. If you like it, I understand why you like it. It's a lot of fun until it's not. But being a bass player, like I want to be the foundation and rooted. And then you do some blow and you get on stage and you're just like, you're antsy, you want more. It's just like the worst. Even making poor decisions back then, I was like, I recognized I was like, this does not serve me. But I would have a couple drinks before I get on stage and oh, I'm gonna get loose. Like that's what you do, it's rock and roll, drink, and just think that there's like such bullshit to like believe that that's how you have to do it. And yeah, I just like if you get up there now, and as I was saying, like before, if I was drinking or whatever, if I made a mistake, I could blame it on the drinking. And now if something happens, you're like, doesn't matter. Like I did my best. Like I'm up here, I'm clean, like not drinking. I just forgot that part. Like you can laugh it off a little bit. And you're like, don't beat yourself up. You're like, yep, don't remember how that part goes. Like, okay, no problem. But before you could like have a reason why it didn't work. And just, yeah, it's just like trying to be as present and with like all musical settings. It's just nice to get up there and feel like this is my job. I'm prepared. I'm here 100%. Like, and just you're like, yeah, my ability to even have fun up there is higher than I ever was, and it's just so awesome. I was terrified of that. I was worried I wasn't going to have fun and like lose my creativity by not like drinking or whatever before a show. And it's the complete opposite.
It sounds like it's like so much more fulfilling now too.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever had like stage fright?
It never, it sounds like talking to other people and some professional musicians, like, you hear people have been touring their whole life and they still get stage fright. I never had that level of it. Um, some nervousness before a show sometimes, but generally I'm pretty cool and calm and collected, which is nice. It's really nice to get on stage and like, whether it's 15 people or thousands of people, and just like, you're like, I got this, we got this, we deserve to be here. We're gonna do our best. Like, I always like to have an idea of like we're gonna go up there and crush it. But like for me, it sort of turned into like we're gonna go up there and have fun and do our best. And like it might be great and it might not, but either way, like as long as we go up there and do our best and have fun, that's like the best show we could put on.
For sure.
This is Flowers on the Stage, a podcast about being creative and finding success. To support it, please check out our sponsors, New Belgium Brewing and Thrax CBD. And now, back to the episode.
All right. I'm wondering if you could go back and talk to yourself in the early part of your Dopapod journey and like give yourself some advice. Like, what do you think you would say to yourself then?
Have more fun. Like, I need to explain that a little bit because we were having a lot of fun, but I was focused on the wrong things back then. There's like, I think there's a level of competition in music that can be healthy, but also really detrimental to your own mental health and just like the purpose of it. You know, reading these books, I'm like deep in uh Phil Lesh's book. And it's hard to, this is everybody's account of what happened, so take it or leave it. But it just sounds like the community musicians back then, and like as the scene was coming up back in the mid 60s and early 70s, or I guess mid 60s into the late 60s in San Francisco, just there was this awesome community musicians and like everybody supported each other. And I just was like way too concerned with like my own ego and shit back then. Like, am I the best? Are we the best band? Like, I'm gonna go up there and like just super self-centered and just that sucks. That's like not a good way to be, and it comes from insecurity, I think, for everybody. That's like, I know that's what it was for me, because that's how you present it. It's just like, yeah, just being a lack of confidence with yourself. So I think kind of just encouraging myself to be myself and allowing myself to be myself, and just like, I just have a little more fun, relax. Doesn't matter, if you're going to be on the cover of Bass Player magazine. Like, this is a very cool and unique thing. And I mean, realistically, I would have told me to not drink as much, but like, I wouldn't have listened. So, and it was,
love it.
It didn't. There is a weird thing with drinking where like I was watching this George Carlin video, and it's like some of these things, like when you first start, the reward is huge and the payoff is low. You're like, you have a great time partying, hanging out, and you wake up, best night, so much fun. And then next day you wake up, you're like, oh, I'm kind of hungover. But fuck it, let's do it again. And it just slowly transfers, like the reward is not as high and the aftermath is so much higher. And you just like, it's such a slow transition. I think it's hard to realize when it's like transferred that much. And I just like, I was dealing with some like the loss of my dad. He passed away at the beginning of COVID, and it was really traumatic, and just like a bunch of just life stuff. And I grew up in a band. I like to party. I like to get fucked up. Like that's what I like to do. So like I didn't know any other identity besides that version. So you kind of just get used to it. You're like, this is the person I am. You don't even realize there's just like all of these, not everything, but just like a fundamental issue that's behind just your general unhappiness. It's just like this chemical imbalance from drinking all the time.
Yeah. And like getting past that, like, I'm curious what you feel like, and maybe you had an actual thing, or maybe it was an accumulation of just time and thoughts, but what tipped the scale in you deciding to like change your life in this way?
It happened a couple times. I took a break in 21. I mean, like, I'm happy to share, but like the break I took in 21, like, after COVID, like, what did you do? You sat around and you drank. Like, we had this party. I was playing this house party, and just afterwards, I got like hammered, and I just like puked all over my carpet. And my mom was there, and I was like crying and throwing up, and it was just like fucking horrible. And the next day, I was like, oh, I can't do that anymore. And I took a break. Like, I didn't drink for 3 months. And at some point later in the summer, I was like, this. I was like, oh, but maybe I'll drink again. I had a beer, and it started. At first, I didn't really like it, and then we went back on tour, and it just picked back up. And before I knew it, I was drinking more again. And the most recent one was just like, as I was talking about a minute ago, I used to get fucked up and hang out and party, and I'd wake up the last night like, oh, I don't feel great, but that was so much fun. And it just shifted like post COVID to like 80% of the time at the end of the night, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I do this? And I wake up in the morning and I'd remember it, and the day would go on, and I just kind of like, well, off I go again. Like, time to make my tequila drink, whether I'm playing a gig or at home. And it just kept going and going. I was so tired of it. And there wasn't really a particular day, but just a lot of events, and just like the version of myself that I had become and was being. And just like, I did some real fucking shitty things when I was fucked up and lost some family and lost some friends. And just like coming to terms with just yourself and just the shit you've done is like really, it's tough. It sucks, but
A lot of people don't even do it though. So,
yeah.
Something to be said for actually coming to terms.
Yeah. I'm happy to have addressed my issues and keep addressing them. It's like I feel much better than I did a year ago, which is great.
I love it. What do you think the future you would say to you today if given the chance?
Future me, I like that one. Stay on the path, I guess, like I feel like I'm on a good trajectory right now. I'm excited. There's a lot of unknown in the future, and my whole life has kind of always been improvising and going by the seat of my pants, so it's not a new territory to me. But there's definitely a lot of unknown, and I think that my future me would be like, don't get scared, just continue on, like believe in yourself, and I think there's some really great and exciting things coming that I have no idea about yet, which is awesome. It's a great way to feel.
Yes. Yes. And my next question, what would you say are your top 3 favorite Dopapod songs?
Oh, it's a great one. Bats in a Cave, I think, is one of them. Uh, Volume 3, number 86. Just because I just feel like that's just the most Dopapod song there is. Like, I remember at some point in the last couple of years, there was like a fan-led mashup of people picking their favorite songs, and it came down to Faba or 386. And either one of those, I would say, if like someone's like, "What is that band?" I'd be like, "This is us." That's though either one of those songs represents, I think, fully represents us. And we've dove into some really other cool ones. And yeah, I would say those are my 3 favorite. I could break apart all of them for different reasons, but those are the ones I feel like are the core of us.
So, taking us home here, I'm curious to hear what post Dopapod life looks like for you.
Yeah, I am going to New Zealand January 10th. I'm taking my bike
Oh shit.
ride from the top to the bottom of both islands. Planning on that. Just yeah, just
Nice.
we have time and availability, and yeah, I'm gonna go do like a once in a lifetime opportunity trip, and then from there I'm going back to school in March. I've been working at a bike shop here in Vermont for a couple months, and I love it. Like, obviously I love cycling, and I love the shop I'm at. So I'm going back. I'm going to this bike mechanic school. I'm gonna get if I pass, I get certified master bike mechanic, and then there's like 2 extra electives to do wheel building and suspension work. So I'm gonna come back to Vermont and work in the shop and just branch on bikes and gig and sort of just like, I don't know, that sounds good for a couple of years, and then we'll see. My dad did so many different jobs in his life. It's something that I'm always inspired by is he would just like do something new and totally crush it. So it's happened to me enough. I believe if this is the right thing to do right now, and if something needs to change in a couple of years, then we'll deal with that then.
Have you read the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
I have started it 3 times, and I just for some reason always end at like page 200. I don't know why. Like I love the book.
It's tough to read. It's a thick one, but I listened to it.
Okay, yeah. I should get it on audiobook because that's some of the ones that I want to read. They're just tough to sit down on. And that one starts real it starts heady and it just gets headier and headier. But I've done a lot of like actual Zen Buddhism diving because it's like, that's what you do when you get sober. You dive into meditation. It's part of the fucking cliche. But um I've been like diving into it, and I think now with a little bit more fundamental knowledge about what that religion's all about, I think I could probably get into the dense stuff a little more.
But yeah, no, incredible book, incredible interview, incredible man. Chuck, dude, thank you for taking the time. Absolutely love this chat with you, man. And
Yeah, you too.
I'm glad you're okay. And it's
Yeah, I'm
great to
good.
hear that you're not not in selling insurance or anything soul sucking, and that you're,
No.
going on an adventure and doing your thing.
The thing I will add, which I'll follow up with, is I got this supplemental cycle insurance. It's called through Spot, and apparently, best case scenario is they cover up to $25,000 out of pocket expenses. There's like it's all insurance companies, so you got to like wiggle with it. Fingers crossed. But I'm hoping that this saga in the ER is not going to like break my bank. But I needed to go. So what are you going to do? It's part of.
Hey,
life.
you got insurance, you got
Injured.
cycling insurance. That should hold up.
That's why I'm
if you were
saying
cycling,
I will follow up. If it works out, I'm gonna post about that and blow their shit up because that's like potentially about to be a life-saving thing I paid for. At least
amen.
financially life-saving.
Good on you, and I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Well, my man, cheers. Appreciate all the years of incredible music, and looking forward to rooting you on as the road
Thanks.
continues.
I appreciate this interview.
Cheers, brother.